Roswell, 1947. What really happened? In 1947, something fell from the sky near Roswell, New Mexico. The U.S. military said it was a flying disc. The next day, they said it was a weather balloon. So, what really happened? Was it an alien spacecraft, a top-secret operation, or just a case of media hysteria? Let's uncover the truth about the Roswell incident, one of the most famous UFO cases in history, the crash. On July 8, 1947, the Public Information Officer at Roswell Army Airfield issued a stunning press release. The U.S. military had recovered a flying disc from a ranch near Roswell, New Mexico. Within hours, newspapers across the country ran with the story. Headlines screamed of captured flying saucers. Just 2 weeks earlier, pilot Kenneth Arnold had reported seeing 9 mysterious objects flying near Mount Rainier, sparking America's first real UFO frenzy. Roswell seemed to confirm it. Aliens had arrived. But the excitement didn't last long. The very next day, the military backtracked. Officials now claimed the debris was simply a weather balloon, nothing more. The press was invited to view the wreckage, torn foil, wooden sticks, and rubber remnants. The flying disc story was officially dead. The debris had originally been discovered by Mac Brazel, a local rancher, days earlier. He described strange foil-like material that was incredibly light, yet couldn't be torn or burned. He also mentioned unusual symbols etched into some of the fragments, symbols unlike anything he'd ever seen. When Brazel reported the find to local authorities, the military responded quickly. Soldiers arrived, cordoned off the area, collected the wreckage, and flew it to Fort Worth Army Airfield in Texas. Witnesses say Brazel was taken in for questioning and came out days later refusing to talk. Locals reported threats, intimidation, and sudden silence. Roswell, once a sleepy desert town, became ground zero for suspicion. What had the military found out there in the desert? And why the sudden change in story? Theories and rumors. In the years that followed, Roswell faded from public view. The weather balloon explanation held, until the late 1970s, when something changed. That's when former military personnel, intelligence officers, and longtime Roswell residents began to speak out. Some for the first time. Many told a very different story. One former base employee claimed he had seen metallic debris that defied conventional explanation, material that could bend but would return to its original shape. Others said they saw small humanoid bodies, about 4 feet tall, being transported under heavy guard. A nurse allegedly present at the base hospital claimed she was traumatized by what she saw, non-human remains being examined. In 1980, authors Charles Berlitz and William Moore published The Roswell Incident. The book reignited public interest and introduced the theory that would define Roswell lore, that the government had recovered not just a crashed spacecraft, but the bodies of extraterrestrial beings, and then covered it all up. The story took on a life of its own. TV specials, tabloid reports, and sci-fi shows kept it alive. In 1995, a grainy black-and-white video surfaced, purporting to show an alien autopsy from Roswell. Though widely debunked as a hoax, the footage went viral and introduced a new generation to the mystery. Soon, Roswell wasn't just a small town in New Mexico. It became the epicenter of America's obsession with UFOs, a place where tourists now flock, museums thrive, and every July brings a UFO festival complete with parades and alien costumes. Over time, the rumors deepened. Some said the crash was actually 2 separate craft. Others claimed high-level government officials, including future presidents, were briefed on the event and sworn to secrecy. In 1994, the U.S. Air Force released a new report, this time admitting that the debris may have come from Project Mogul, a top-secret balloon project designed to detect Soviet nuclear tests. This seemed to explain the unusual materials and the original secrecy. But to many, it felt like just another cover story. If it was really just balloons and sensors, why did so many people stay silent for so long? Why the threats, the confiscated evidence, the sudden reversals? Could it be that something did crash in Roswell in 1947? Something not from this earth? Or is it all just a case of Cold War secrecy, misunderstood technology, and stories that grew taller with time, he declassified truth. Nearly 50 years after the Roswell incident, the U.S. government finally addressed the conspiracy head-on. In 1994, the U.S. Air Force released a 1,000-page, declassified report titled The Roswell Report: Fact versus Fiction in the New Mexico Desert. For the first time, the military acknowledged that the debris recovered in 1947 did not come from a simple weather balloon, but from a top-secret operation called Project Mogul. Project Mogul was a classified Cold War initiative designed to detect nuclear explosions in the Soviet Union using high-altitude balloons. These balloons carried special sensors, including long arrays of microphones, radar targets, and reflective foil panels, all tied together with string, balsa wood, and rubber. The materials were unfamiliar to civilians, especially in a time before plastic became widespread. To someone like rancher Mac Brazel, who stumbled upon the wreckage, it must have looked otherworldly. Because Mogul was top secret, military officials in 1947 couldn't admit what it was, so they defaulted to the simplest explanation they could give the public: a weather balloon. Ironically, the cover story meant to calm fears only stoked decades of suspicion. But what about the so-called alien bodies? Eyewitnesses described small humanoid figures being recovered from the crash site. In response, the Air Force released a second report in 1997 titled The Roswell Report: Case Closed. It suggested that these bodies were likely anthropomorphic test dummies used in high-altitude parachute and ejection seat experiments, many of which took place across New Mexico in the 1950s. These dummies were eerily human-like in appearance, complete with joints, articulated limbs, and even simulated injuries for testing. Over time, the memory of these experiments may have blurred in the minds of witnesses. Combine that with sensational media coverage, and you get a compelling, but false, narrative. The Air Force also found no evidence of recovered spacecraft, alien autopsies, or any official documentation referring to extraterrestrial materials. So why was there so much confusion? Simple: timing and secrecy. At the time of the crash, both Project Mogul and the dummy tests were classified. Civilians were left to fill in the blanks themselves. In the vacuum of official explanation, stories grew, and legends took root. Myth crosses reality. Even with declassified reports, technical evidence, and decades of investigation, millions of people still believe the Roswell incident was a government cover-up of alien contact. Why? Because Roswell isn't just an event anymore. It's a symbol, a cultural landmark that represents government secrecy, hidden truths, and the hope, or fear, that we might not be alone in the universe. In many ways, the Roswell story reflects our era more than the event itself. In the late 1940s, Americans were entering the atomic age and the Cold War. Technology was advancing faster than most people could understand. The skies were suddenly filled with strange aircraft, classified military tests, and silent operations no one could explain. When secrecy becomes the norm, imagination fills the gaps. And Roswell provided the perfect storm. A real crash, conflicting statements, strange debris, military lockdown, and then total silence. The groundwork was laid for a myth that would grow larger than the truth, but based on the best available evidence today, the most rational explanation for the Roswell incident is not extraterrestrial. It's terrestrial secrecy, a byproduct of Cold War espionage and compartmentalized military programs. In short, Roswell wasn't the beginning of alien contact. It was the beginning of Cold War paranoia, an era when secrets flew higher than any saucer ever could. Still, the mystery endures. Not because it's unsolved, but because it taps into something deeper. Our curiosity, our distrust, and our eternal question, what if we're not alone? The truth behind Roswell may not be what we imagined, but it teaches us something just as powerful, that mystery loves a vacuum. And when official silence speaks louder than words, speculation takes flight. Want more real stories behind legendary events? Subscribe now and stay tuned, because we're just getting started.